Then I have a question I wondered about often. I want to put that to Achyut Yagnik. Can Modi reach out to his mother, possibly even his wife, and bring them in? Do you think that will ever happen, or do you think that's never going to happen?
I don't think that will.
That's not who he is. That's not what he's going to do.
But every year I think he visits his family.
He will go and meet her. After the assembly elections, he goes and takes Ashirwad also.
But in the RSS tradition, once you have offered your life, even done, then you are in a way like a sannyasi. You are not supposed to keep that kind of.
In Assam, we are getting word that Tarun Gogoi has resigned. Yes, he's taking moral responsibility. He's led the Congress thrice over to victory in Assam. Now he's taking moral responsibility and stepping aside. Let's take a look at the numbers for Assam. We've got leads for all 14 seats. Out of those, the BJP is winning on 8 of those seats. Remember, the BJP did not get into an alliance with the AGP, which is what some people suggested, but the local leaders were confident that they pull it off, and they have, because the Congress is down to 2. That's a loss of 5 from the last time. The AGP is at 0, down 1, and others are at 4. We don't have the breakup yet, but that's probably Badruddin Ajmal's AUDF. But the fact that, because since 1984, Karan, there hasn't been an occasion where one party has formed a government by itself. So let there be no dispute, let there be no doubt. This is a wave. Would it qualify as a tsunami?
Well, I think beyond what adjective you use to describe it, I think the interesting question is to now focus on how powerful a Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be. Because if he's driven the party to 274, as the lead suggests, and given them a majority on its own where they could actually do without their allies, not that they will, he is going to dominate the BJP. And he's done it simply by the strength of his personality and the energy of his campaign. He has no rival in the party at all that can stand up to him, and I don't believe that the RSS is going to be capable in any way putting fetters around him. So Mr. Modi will now dominate the scene in a way in which, say, Indira Gandhi did in the 70s and the early 80s, right? He will be strong. What he wants, he will do, and he will be able to push through reform measures if he believes in them. He will be able to push bureaucrats into doing what he believes is the right way of handling matters. The administrative reforms he talks about, the policy changes will be easy for him to implement, provided he's determined to do it.
Also, he's a very good listener, and he surrounds himself or reaches out to experts, and he is known for his implementation and coordination. So I think the country should demand all this from the new Prime Minister.
Will we see a dream cabinet, a cabinet of experts? There's been a lot of buzz of this in Modi circles, in RSS circles, that pick the brightest and the best. And every intellectual sabha, Buddhijivik sabha that they do of RSS leading intellectuals, they always say, pick the best and the brightest who have an affinity towards your ideology, make them in charge. Do you see that happen?
Can I put this in some perspective?
Yes.
You've had the so-called dream cabinet for the past 10 years. You've had a prime minister who's an economist. You've got very able people, in Chidambaram, Salman Khurshid, and we're a walking disaster zone, India, at the moment. So no matter what he puts into that cabinet, no matter how wrong he goes with some decisions, it's got to be better than where we're at just now. And that is the message of this election. It's much more hope than anyone realizes. If I was him, I would be really terrified. There's so much hope and so much invested in him personally to do the right thing.
But Rahul, the answer to your question is actually in the BJP manifesto. They have committed themselves in their manifesto, and I assume Mr. Modi intends to honor it, to bring in good people from academia, from society, which is an undefined concept, and from industry. And yesterday, Mr. Kanoria, the former head of FICCI, says he's aware of several people in industry who have been approached quietly by Mr. Modi and the BJP and would be willing to come. So this is certainly his opportunity, because of those 273 or 4 BJP MPs, many are inexperienced and new faces, and he may not want to elevate them to cabinet rank, and so he may find that this is an opportunity to fulfill a manifesto commitment, particularly if industry is willing to join him.
Because there's been talk of E. Sridharan, the DMRC person, also KV Kamath coming on board in some capacity. It would be fabulous if that happens.
Point to that, right? I agree entirely that you're seeing for the first time someone with the kind of power that, say, Indira Gandhi had or Rajiv Gandhi had in his initial years. But the one crucial difference, which is something that the world is going to be looking at, is for the first time the world's largest democracy has moved decisively to the right. So you have had powerful left of center figures.
Correct.
For the first time, you have a powerful right of center figure. What that means for economic policy, what that means for foreign and defense policy, what that means for social policy is uncharted territory, very dramatic, very exciting.
What does that
Very
mean? Because
well
India
put,
hasn't
Sudhir.
had
You're right.
a rightist prime minister, Karan. And the thought so far in the political narrative has been that India is too centrist a country ever to have a powerful rightist leader. Now, lo and behold, you've got a rightist Hindutva prime minister who's as rightist and as Hindutva as they get.
You know, countries have thrown up a prime minister in the past which has defied and broken the established consensus that existed up till there. A classic example is Margaret Thatcher in '79. She overturned the Labour consensus. She came in determined to smash it, and she did it in three fundamental ways. She pushed through right-wing economic policies. She changed the hold of labour unions on government and on industry. And more than that, she shifted the very groundwork of culture and ethos of that country to the right. Mr. Modi could do the same thing.
I think he's already doing it.
He'll do it in three ways. One, he will change the definition of what government does and what its established role is. Secondly, he will probably change the relationship between the governed and government and what we can expect from our government, what the government expects us to do by encouraging entrepreneurship, perhaps by cutting down on planning, perhaps by reducing
By changing the
subsidies
labour
and
laws
welfare,
for a start.
and by changing labour laws. And then the third thing he'll do is to force other parties, just as happened in Britain, to also move to the right to make themselves electable. Labour, when it returned after 19 years in the wilderness, came back very much, as Tony Blair himself admitted, as protégés and children of Margaret Thatcher. You
But
might
Rahul, you
find
must remember
if
that-
Modi does the same thing in India and continues, say, for 2 terms, which is possible but hard to predict, that Congress will have to force itself to the right, forge a new consensus to make itself electable. These things have happened elsewhere. They could easily happen in India too.
And maybe
the
we're seeing
same
the
time-
first signs of that in that hover we saw in the morning.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Rahul? Rahul,
Yes, sure.
Arun
Things
Jaitley
are shifting.
apparently is now
And
trailing
the
by
AAP party is
31,000
going to have
votes.
to change its economic policy.
At the same time, may I say that I don't see Modi squandering his political capital. That I don't see him immediately.
Nobody sees that, Nalini.
Yeah, no, I don't see. I mean, like for instance, we're talking about Thatcher, disinvestment. I don't know if that would be so high.
But he can. He has the mandate. He can do what he wants.
Also, Manrega. You know, things that have. He might change the entire structure of these, but I do not see.
No,
him
but he wants to
squandering
change
political
Manrega
capital.
fundamentally. He says
These-
no digging
These
pits.
are the
It
people
needs to
who
be
he
constructed
should
assets that
change
get
it.
built with
No, in
something.
his own way. In his own way.
Nalini is absolutely right when she draws a line of caution about disinvestment, because he hasn't pursued disinvestment as a major policy in his own state. What he's chosen to do there is, in fact, to build up public sector units.
Right.
But the problem he faces when he comes to the centre is that he's made commitments in terms of infrastructure development, which are priorities, not just because without infrastructure, industry won't grow and manufacturing hub that he wants to create won't happen, but also the jobs that he needs to create to fulfill the democratic dividend needs infrastructure at the very forefront to create those jobs. Now, that infrastructure requires enormous investment. If you don't get an equivalent amount in the way of FDI, then the safest way of raising it is disinvestment. So he may be forced to rethink because his priorities in Delhi are different to what they were in Gujarat. Many of the Gujarat attitudes may be undermined in Delhi because the
No,
pressures
but
here
some
and the
people would
challenges
also
are
suggest,
different.
Veer Sanghvi, that we've seen Modi say and do what he did because he wanted to be populist. Now that he has this mandate, he can actually bring out the real Narendra Modi and do what he really wants to do.
Well, I've always been slightly skeptical of all this Thatcher moment stuff. What Margaret Thatcher did, I mean, as Karan has correctly pointed out, is she controlled the power of the trade unions, she allowed the city of London to boom with the Big Bang, and she cut back on the welfare state. In India, I'm not sure Modi is ready to get into battle with the trade unions, and the same situation that applied in England does not apply. I have not seen much evidence that Modi is willing to cut back on the welfare state. I've seen no evidence he's going to do privatization or disinvestment. What he is going to do is going to make government more efficient, he's going to remove red tape, he's going to encourage Indians to be more entrepreneurial, he's probably going to help established industry go forward. How much foreign investment he will bring in, how much he will support with the Gurumurtis and everybody sitting next to
I
him.
think the Gurumurtis and all the silence.
These are all good things.
I'm not
The
even
more
that sure.
jobs, the more
I'm not even that sure he'll do
I
that.
think he's defeated the
I mean, 15 years ago.
Swadeshi Jagran bunch. I think he's
What will
defeated them.
happen to land acquisition? Number one, what will happen to mining?
Will he change?
also?
Will he have
Yes.
the courage
He's
to
got
change
his
those
mandate.
laws?
Yes,
Rahul,
that is also
yes,
important.
exactly. I mean, the talk about the trade unions and all those things. 15 years ago, statistics revealed that the biggest trade union center in India happens to be the Bharatiya Mazdoor Sangh, and that belongs to the same fold that Modi represents. So I mean, will he be able to sort of contain the trade unions is something that is a big question.
Can I just disagree for a second on this? there has been an ongoing economic battle within the BJP between traditionalists represented by the likes of Guru Murthy and the Swadeshi Jagran Month and modernizers represented by Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi is the captain of the modernizing team. When he says that India needs
But he hasn't opposed FDI in retail.
So the
How
view
is he
on
the
that, there are two views on this.
He hasn't spoken in favor of changing labor laws.
He has campaigned as a centrist, but he has surrounded himself with rightists. Who are his economic advisors? Who are the people he takes counsel
Arvind
from?
Panagaria,
People like
Jagdish
Arvind
Bhagwati.
Panagaria, people like Jagdish Bhagwati, people whose fundamental argument is that India went wrong in the last 10 years by focusing too much on redistribution, too little on growth.
And he's changing the narrative from Roti Kapda Makan Shiv Vishwanathan to Sadak Bijli Pani.
And jobs.
Changing it from entitlement to empowerment.
Sorry, I like the poetry, I like the bandwagon effect. I think someone needs to be a critic. One, Narendra Modi will threaten civil society. He did it in Gujarat. I think we're going to confront the same situation here. Let me just give you 3 questions for Narendra Modi. Will he apply the Gadgil report on ecology, which divided all of India into go and no-go categories about growth?
It's a very dodgy report, by the way.
No, I've read the report.
I've read it too, and I'm an environmentalist.
Allowed the adjectives, but you want to debate it in public, I'm quite ready. Second, I think you've got to understand that to a certain extent, issues about mining and so on are basic political issues. He has to answer questions beyond right and left. There are some questions which deal with survival and sustainability. They don't belong to right or left. And I think it's time you talk about political economy, political ecology, along with governance. Otherwise, we are adding to the future illiteracy of our new country.
You know,
I think
Rahul,
we're
this election is
more
also throwing up
optimistic.
another set of questions, not just about Mr. Modi's dominance, but if he comes in with 277 on his own, which is what the lead suggests for the BJP, and the NDA as a whole is now at 320, what happens to state governments like UP? What happens to state governments in Bihar, right? Just to take those
Delhi.
which have been undermined in terms of the Lok Sabha result. Will Mr. Modi seek to do what Indira Gandhi didn't hesitate to do, which is to find spurious reasons to remove state governments? Because one reason he may consider that, I'm not saying he'll do it, is because in the Rajya Sabha, he simply has only 64. And that 64 is not sufficient for his bills to pass easily. He's not going to be able to get the Mulayams and the Mayavatis on board as Congress did. So he needs to expand the Rajya Sabha number, and he can only do that if he can get a reflection from UP and Bihar that increases his RSS vote share.
But I think
That's
before
one.
that, yeah, but
And there are
before that,
precedents. I mean,
but
Morarji did it, Indira Gandhi did it, so there are many precedents.
I think
like
before that, he got.
I think, you know, times have
dismiss the government.
No. Times have changed. The 1993 Supreme Court judgment of the Bombay case has made it impossible for any central government to use 356
No,
the
but
way.
that would also
No,
create.
I wasn't talking about 356. I'm saying, for instance, Nitish's government would collapse under the weight of his
No, that's fine,
contradictions.
that's fine.
He relies
Yeah,
upon
governments will
independents who
collapse.
won't be there. You could engineer. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. Defections out of the Samajwadi Party. Hopefully, it won't happen, but it can.
Though their majority is too big, but
can I-
Nitish's government most definitely is precariously placed.
Easily.
And in any case, there's been a lot of talk of what might happen post the 16th of May if Nitish gets routed. That's exactly
But
what's
can I just say that, you know, this question of the Rajya Sabha and passing bills in Parliament, there is many things that he can do. I think, and I'll stick my neck out, he will recapitalize the public sector unit banks